Hello and welcome to Meet the Producers, a Brunswick podcast powered by Brunswick Area Television. I'm Ben Staunton, and with me here is a guy who once fell asleep while watching Bob Ross and woke up with a masterpiece of Happy Little Trees and a perm, Tom Kepler.
I don't know about the perm, but yeah. Fun fact, I am very good at drawing trees from watching Bob Ross.
Well, see, that's
those
good.
Pine trees, man. I don't know how to make them happy or not. But
Well, there's no mistakes. There's just happy accidents. Is that what he always said?
I believe so.
I think that's what he said.
He had a lot of smart things. He was a wise man.
He was, and I loved watching him. PBS, one of our flagship kind of things that they have out there, public television, and we are more hyper local, but we're kind of in that same realm. So
Exactly.
that's good.
And I always admit I love creative people. That's why I got into music, why I got into, this, podcasting and TV and stuff, why I love my job. Sitting here with you, we get to meet some of the best because you mentioned we're hyper local. Today we're talking about brush tips with Cheri, and we have Cheri on the line. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing good.
I don't want to answer for both of us.
Well, and I'm doing good too, Cheri. Thanks for asking.
Okay, good.
So you are an artist who brought the art to the TV. So we're so happy for this because, as Ben mentioned, Bob Ross is kind of one of the greats. I don't know if you're tired of hearing people compare art shows to Bob Ross, but we're very happy that there's the art program on Brunswick Area Television. So let's start off and say, how did you get interested in art? Like, what was your background?
Well, let me tell you that I am actually honored when people tell me that I'm just like Bob Ross. And he is actually a staple in our studios. We have a big cutout of him, and people come in, they want to take pictures with him all the time. But if people think that I'm like Bob Ross, I'm totally for it. So I love watching Bob Ross too. So
Good.
yeah, one of the crazy things is when I was younger, I used to watch him, and I used to think, like, how could he paint that painting so quickly? And then I was given the opportunity to paint that painting so quickly, and I was like, oh, wow, it's not as easy as it looks. But when I was younger, like 4 years old or so, I used to sit there and paint little things for my mom, like little ceramic things, and that kind of is what got me going. Then
I'm sure she
was
loved
like,
that.
Yeah, and she used to make candy at Easter, and I was like, why are you just making them chocolate? Why can't you paint them? And so I started doing that, and then I started being super crafty over everything. I was like, well, let's just make a craft. I used to make mud pies and feed them to the neighbors because I was cooking, and I was like, but look at the design on top. And then I grew into that, and in third grade I won a poster contest, and I actually never even thought of myself as an artist, and I'm 45 years old, and I never even thought of myself as an artist probably till about 5 years ago. And I have been doing this business for 7 years.
Wow.
And creating art my whole life, but it's just such a natural thing that I do, and I just think I'm not doing it to create art. I'm doing it because that's what I love to do.
That's an awesome answer. You mentioned.
I know, it's crazy.
I find that creative people too. Like you mentioned, why can't we do this? There's no limits. Why not? All right, I'll figure out how to do it, and then we get it done.
Yeah. I mean, with the art, and there's so many different ways and so many different things to do with different art. And it doesn't matter, if somebody else doesn't like it or if somebody else doesn't think it's art. And that's why I love having the art studios is we give so many people the opportunity to create and the opportunity to come in. And I have seen people in panic. I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm not an artist. And I'm like, you are an artist. If I'm an artist, you're an artist. You're an artist. Trust me. Don't say that, because I used to say that. I used to say, I'm not an artist. I just like to be crafty, or I'm not an artist. I just like to paint. But in our own way, we're all artists. So people come in and they're stressed out, and I'm like, just don't worry. Just follow my lead. I know what I'm doing. They're like, well, this is your job. This is your job. I'm like, this isn't my job. This is my passion.
That's a good answer as well.
My job is to, show up for my family, my kids. That's where I love to be. That's what I think is like my job. But this is just, I got to show up and open the doors and give people a safe place to create, give people the opportunity to, sit down. And then once it was presented for me to be able to do it on TV, that was a no-brainer. I'm like, yeah, if I can do that and bring that into people's houses, not to compare myself to Bob Ross, but, he never got paid to do his TV show. And he did it because he just loved painting and loved spreading art and the joy of art. And people are always like, oh, you probably get paid so good to do that. And I'm like, no, I just go and do it because I love to spread art into people's homes. So imagine all the people that I get to show that they can just sit down and slow down a minute.
I'm good at slowing down. That's one thing.
Yeah. I am not. So that does help me slow down too. But It's not. Yeah, it's like my passion. It's hard to put into words.
You have a passion and you want to share it with the community. You mentioned you haven't felt like an artist until maybe 7 years ago, 5 years ago, and you've been doing this, 7 years? So what does that mean? You've been creating your whole life. What do you mean you've been doing what for 7 years? Is that your studio or? Yeah.
I have 2 art studios. I have one there in Wadsworth, and then I have one here in Florida. And yeah, I never labeled myself as an artist. I never thought that I was good enough as an artist. And because my art didn't look like, the other person's art, or my art wasn't on display in a museum, or my art wasn't famous. And then one day I was like, wait a minute.
Well, the fact that there's so many differences.
Right. I don't have to have all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so crazy when you sit there and you look at other people's art and you try to compare yourself. But you could sit down in my studio and you could paint a palm tree, and I could paint the same palm tree, and it's going to be 2 different styles, because we all have our own style of art. We all have our own technique. We all have our things that we love, and we all put our own design on it, our own personality on it. So mine has Cheri on it. Mm-hmm. And it looks like what Cheri does, So sometimes people will come in and they'll say, hey, I want to paint this, but can you do this or that? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we could do that. It might not look like that, but we can do that. And I look at my artists and I think, okay, that one is the closest to that, so they can go and do that painting for that person or whatever.
That's cool. Would you be comfortable describing your style? Like what would a painting by Cheri look like for people just listening right now?
So I honestly would just paint for what other people wanted me to paint. And when I sit down and I paint just for myself, I actually get the opportunity to watch the paint move and the brush move. When I'm in a class and I'm trying to get through the class in 2 hours and get a painting done, I don't get that opportunity. But when I actually get to sit down and do it, I get to follow the lines that I want to make, and I get to make an abstract if I'm in the mood for abstract, or I get to actually put myself in my own painting. So I get to put myself at the beach, and I get to imagine what the beach looks like when I'm there painting it, or I get to put myself in a park, or I get to put myself in that feeling and then paint what I feel, what I'm feeling. I get to talk to my painting and just learn the different parts of me and explore my brain as I'm painting. And when you think of it and you look at it that way, it changes your whole perspective on how you're putting your work onto a canvas. So some days it might look super neat and put together because that's where my brain is that day. But some days it might look like it's a little bit messy, or it might look like, not as perfect as the painting the day before. And that's because I'm rushed or I feel more happy. So it might be brighter colors or lighter colors. And it's honestly it's very interesting to watch people create and giving them the space to create, because the way that people look at it and the way that they put it on the canvas, it's great to watch their artistic brain move.
I can appreciate that for sure. Some of our TV shows here, we are the communications department for the city of Brunswick. I can't spend endless time on productions here. So I kind of have to say that's good enough. It's good to go. So kind of both perspectives there of the creative process. I can appreciate that. And every angle you go at it, there's going to be different days.
One of the things that I tell people is when they do sit down and they start creating, I'm like, people only know what you tell them about your art. If you tell them, if you throw a piece of paint on a canvas and throw a couple other colors on it and you say, hey, this is done, then it's done. People don't know that. People only know what you tell them. So if you tell them like, hey, look, this is my art, but my flower isn't as pretty as I want it to be, then they're going to look at it and be like, oh, well, the art's not done.
Yeah, now that you mentioned that.
Yeah, so people only know what you tell them about your art. So if you sit there and you tell them like, yeah, I love this art. This is my art. It's so great, and it might not be finished, but you're speaking that over your art too. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, nope, if you say anything negative about it, you have to say 3 nice things about it now.
There you go.
So that's something that's a staple in my studios when I'm there teaching is I'm like, nope, you got to say 3 nice things about it or about yourself now. And people are like, oh.
Keeping it positive.
Yeah. So it's fun. Just being in the art world is fun. Being even like the TV world, like you guys are in the TV world and music world, it's a different form of art, but it's still all creating.
Yeah. It's nice that when you started and you established yourself, at least in your own mind, that you were finally an artist. That was a great epiphany. I'm assuming that you could say to yourself, hey, I'm an artist. But your show evolves and starts out, and back in 2019. But we can't take credit for your show because that comes to us from WCTV, and you're the producer of that show. So what was the thing that sparked you that day to walk into WCTV, and then later for us to reach out to you and say, hey, why don't you put your show on BAT? It's also 2019. What walked you in that day to do what you did?
I was trying to grow myself in the community in Wadsworth, and I was going on liking all the community pages and just trying to get to know my audience there and who I would be talking to and who I would be with. And Joanna, she's at WCTV, had posted about something. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's cool that she did TV. Like, that's really neat. And I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, do you guys do TV shows? And she said, yeah, we do that. And she kind of explained what went on. And so she said, you want to come in? And so I went in and I talked to her and she was like, you're exactly what I've been looking for. And I was like, perfect.
Nice.
She's like, do you think you could do it? I said, yeah, why not? Right. So going on to the TV show, standing there and creating, as you know, I don't really have a real audience in real person. So I communicate with a fake audience, not a fake one, because you all are real. Whoever watches, you're all real.
Yeah, it's a one-on-one experience when you're watching Brush Tips.
And I have to constantly be engaging and talking and stuff. And she's like, do you think you could do it? And I'm like, yeah, let's try it. So she said, well, this is how you do it. Let's go. It's 26 minutes. You come in, start to finish. No break. Not like you just go right through it. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. I can do it. And I sat down. I just sat there and watched like Bob Ross for like a week. I didn't even tell anyone. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell anybody. And I went there and I did it. And then I was like, look. And then I told everybody. And we actually went to a restaurant that night and had them turn on the TV and we watched it. But that was it. And I was like, I got to do this. I have to be able to get on and be able to spread joy to people through TV. Like, I knew that was it. I knew that was what I wanted to do. And it didn't matter how I did it. I was like, just let me do it. And she was so supportive, and they are supportive. And you guys, and then other networks have reached out to me and have picked up the show. And it's just unique. It's just a fun way to get to bring art into people's homes. So when I had the opportunity, I just took it. And it was a Facebook post, a Facebook post. And I was just like, yeah, it opened up the door. And still, even to this day, like, I don't tell people a lot about it. And people are like, wait, what do you mean you have a TV show? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, it's nothing, because not that it's nothing. It's not nothing. It is something, right? It's big. It's a TV show. I'm on TV bringing art to people in their homes. And I don't realize sometimes how much joy that brings people until they tell me. And then I'm like, oh, I guess that is kind of a big deal. But just to have that opportunity from you guys and being able to spread that art all around, it's mind blowing to me. And I'm humbled every time I'm approached with it, and like, people are excited for it. So
there you go.
Again, I think it's like no big deal, because I'm like, what? I think everyone should do this.
Yeah, exactly.
But people don't. But people sit at home and they watch it, and art is so intimidating to some people, and they get so nervous, and they're like, I can't do it. I'm like, yes, you can. Pick up the brush.
Oh, my boss once told me that public speaking, more people fear that than death. So
wow,
just the fact that you're on TV speaking to people while creating good art and talking people through it and spreading the joy, as you mentioned. Not to make things, grim and bring up death, but just that, I think that's what keeps people from taking that first step. They have their own passions or their own talents, whatever they may be, but just that first step of, sharing it with the public, I think that throws people for a loop sometimes.
It's scary. I mean, just even getting into something that the world has told you your art has to look like this, or your art has to look like that, and it's like, no, it doesn't. My art gets to look like what I want to make it.
Sure.
And people will say, oh, well, don't copy off me. I'm not copying off you. People will say, well, I looked on Pinterest, or I looked on the internet, and this is where I got the idea, but I didn't want to steal the idea. And I'm like, you're not stealing it. You don't steal somebody else's idea. All those ideas were created way before that person thought of it. They just put their own twist on it. Yeah, sit down and paint that painting. Your painting is not going to look like their painting. You can try to replicate it, but they put their heart and soul into that. You're going to put your heart and soul into that one.
Sure.
So I try to get people to understand that part. And once they do, it's like a light clicks on, and they're like, you're right. I don't have to. I can do it that way. I can copy it, because it's not going to look like theirs.
Right. Yeah, you always put your own spin on things. So yeah, it's definitely, your interpretation of maybe what they did, but it's not thievery, at least. So yeah, I would say you're dead on with that, at least in my opinion. I don't know if that counts right. They would definitely, in my opinion.
I've used the term inspired by.
There you go.
Yeah. People get inspired all the time by other people's art. I mean, you see something and you love it, right? You walk into somebody's house and you're, oh, I love that color of your couch. I wish I had one. Then you find one. Oh, now I have the color of that couch.
Sure.
Okay. Like, perfect. Now we have matching couches. If the world was that easy, we would all be having matching couches, right?
Exactly. So you bring a lot of joy to people here in Brunswick and Brunswick Hills Township. I've had quite a few people say to us, oh, where do you get that show from? It's so polished. She does such a good job with it. I really like watching her. One of the first things that they taught me when we were doing our radio classes were you're having a one-on-one relationship with somebody who's listening to you at home. You're not just talking to the masses. You don't address people like, hey, all you guys out there. Normally you say, hi, how are you this evening? I mean, that was one of those things that I don't know if you've ever heard of Delilah, but many people have. That was one of the things that she kept her audience engaged with on the radio because she would talk to them at home as if she was sitting right there with them. And I know a lot of people who listened to her show said, wow, I feel like she knows me. And I think that's kind of the thing that you bring to your show, because you're talking about the little brushes, and my daughter loves the ones that you do. She's watched quite a few of them, and she just loves how you're showing the brushes. You're talking about the colors. You've got that knack where the person feels special because you are working with them. You are the one-on-one relationship with them.
I didn't know what to expect, honestly. Like when I went on TV and she said, this is what we're going to do. And I'm like, okay. And I just did it. It's like I go into a different zone. Like I'm standing there and I think about the people that are watching, but I think about them as an individual, not as like a mass group of people, you know? So I picture the mom sitting there, or I picture, the grandpa sitting there, or whoever it is. And I think, okay, well, this person, might get this from it or that from it. And nothing is ever scripted. Like, honestly, a lot of times I go, oh my gosh, which painting should I do? And I'm looking around the studio and I grab a painting and I run to the TV station and I do it. It's never scripted. Nothing is ever scripted. And I just go on there and it's just organic. It's just my passion and my heart, and just led by that, just my heart. And it's so hard for me to even try to put it into words. So you kind of have me like on the spot. I'm like, how do I even explain this right now? 'Cause it's just such a unique thing, and people tell me all the time, you have so much talent. And I don't know if you know this, but I do HSN, the Home Shopping Network here in Florida, and I go on there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, well, because I don't tell anybody.
Well, the secret's out now.
I know, but I don't tell people, and I think it's just what I do, right? I say, oh, it's just like putting on your shoes. They're like, it's not like putting on your shoes. Like, your TV shows won awards, and I'm like, yeah, but that's just me. That's just me giving my passion to other people. That's just me getting to the place where I want people to just sit down and create, whether it's at home or wherever.
Okay, so you gotta tell us a little more about this HSN thing. What are you doing for HSN?
So that's funny. I live in Florida. If anyone doesn't know that, I moved here in 2020 when the pandemic hit.
Keep rubbing it in. That's okay. We've got snow out here. It's
cold today.
It's cold up here.
If it makes you feel any better, we have like scarves and hats on because it was like 30 degrees this morning. So I am in Tarpon Springs, Florida, and we are all shivering cold. But here is, they have the headquarters for HSN, and I had my my manager, she came into the studio here and did a class the one time, and she said, oh, I need somebody to come in, and I need a craft talent for TV. And I was like, oh, what do you do? I have a TV show. So she said, oh, let me see. And I showed her. She said, well, it's for these crafts, and it's called Aladdin. It's a company in France. So I actually had to send them like clips of the show and a portfolio, just a quick little portfolio, like, hey, this is what I do. And then they said, okay, yeah, we want her. So I go on and I do crafting for HSN, and I say, here, these are stamps. Like, Aladdin's a great company. They make ink for royalty. And so if you ever Google it, just look up Aladdin, like Cheri, HSN, whatever. And it's actually on YouTube.
Nice.
So I've done that a few times. And again, people are like, that's a huge deal. And I'm like, I don't know if it is. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, this is what I do. Like, oh, I just go with it.
Well, just recently, Tom and I had talked to a guy who was like on the ground floor when HSN started in Florida. He was telling us all about how he started out. We had done an interview with him when we were looking for somebody.
Yeah, some of our robotic
us,
cameras he claimed to have invented through HSN.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but
he developed the workflow, because it's all about efficiency.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I love doing it. It's pretty quick. It's totally different than being at WCTV and filming there so that I could go to all the networks, including you guys. It's totally different. I go there, and this is the difference between big TV and, the little guys. But the little guys. Go ahead
and say it.
Listen, it was so
hometown
scary.
hyper-local.
It was so scary. I went there, and so they do like a first run through with you, right? You go in, you got to pass you got to take like this. I don't know what it is, like a little course. It's like a couple hour thing that they kind of walk through, tell you like what you can and cannot say on TV, what you do, whatever.
That's a fun
course.
Then
I know. I was like,
what a yawn.
Okay. Oh my gosh. I was like, I know.
I've been there. I can do this.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't need you to tell me, but they have to. And then you go and you do the run through there. And so they have the host there and you do all that. Well, then they put you in front of the camera. They're like, okay, you're up now. Ready? You're actually getting paid for this. This is a real job now. So then the pressure's really on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I mess up. They put me in front of the camera. There's like 4 cameras. There's like 4 cameramen. I have an earpiece in. There's like 4 people speaking on the earpiece. I have to watch where I'm going. I have to hit features, benefits, and I'm just like, can't I just go back to painting? So it is a little intimidating. It is a little scary. People are, oh, it's so quick. You're on there so fast. It must be such an easy job. I'm like, no. And the last one that I did, my mic didn't work. I was on in I know, and my earpiece. I was on in 3 minutes, and I had this one-piece jumper on. There's different producers there. There's different cameramen, and I'm like, am I supposed to not have sound on my mic? They're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And so they were like, we got to fix it. So then they're all scrambling around me, and you probably have some idea of what that was like. But I was just like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. And I'm like, and I text Joanne afterwards. I said, you didn't tell me about real life TV.
It can be stressful.
Right. Where's Joanne when I need her? I can't do it, Joanne. I can't do it. She's like, yes, you can.
Now you got to say 3 good things. You just said you couldn't do it. So there you go.
I could, but I did. I have done it. It's great. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be there. I don't believe I wouldn't be there if it weren't for, those big name little town TVs like you guys and WCTV and stuff, because those don't exist here in Florida. They don't have them here in Florida, and they're like, sorry. I guess they do have them, but it costs money to be on them, and it costs, a lot. And I'm like, I don't have that, to produce a show every single time,
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so you guys give people the opportunity to do that, which is huge.
I think that's a good example of, if it's something you're interested in, take that first step as well. I had a teacher once tell me that success comes from when opportunity meets preparation. So you had your show, you had some time on mic, on camera, and then this presented itself. And like you said, it might have been a different world, it might have been different, but you had at least a little bit of grounding there,
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, it was nothing like the feel of that small town. And I kind of worry myself that stuff will go away because of regular internet. And I mean, you see that the TV is different now than it was 20 years ago or 40 years ago when Bob Ross was on.
Yeah. Well, WCTV is a good example of this too, where they and us here at Brunswick Area Television, we've been at this for quite a while. We're coming up on 40 years, and I think Wadsworth is pretty similar. where we
Yeah.
adapt, we go with the times. Ben's been quoted in magazines by saying we're like YouTube before YouTube existed. We
Yeah, for
stayed
sure.
relevant with this, so we'll go with the punches. I agree. It's a struggle sometimes to keep relevant, but we're going to do our darnest, and because people like you continue to create public shows, that keeps the public channel alive. So that's why this series here is to give credit where it's due, and that this is all your creation with the public show.
Yeah, but seriously, me and the other producers, and your producers too. There, it's crazy how much it's changed and how much we have to adapt. And I hope that everybody appreciates what you guys do. So I'm grateful for you too.
Well, thank you.
It's an art. It's an art in itself. So,
it is,
but
and
it's fun.
like you mentioned, it's hard to put into words what exactly public access is. Sometimes some people just don't.
It's a lot. It's a lot, and people really don't realize it. And just to let you know, as of 2011, when I had gone down for a tour, St. Petersburg has a channel, and they didn't charge back in 2011. I don't know how that's adapted since then, but I went down there, so I don't know how close you are to them or what the criteria is.
Yeah, that's actually where HSN is down there. But I might look into that. But I do have the opportunity to actually produce here, and I can send it up, and it would be played on the show. I think that there's a couple that I've done down here, and we've put them on. You guys probably have aired them as well.
Yeah, that's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I feel like, and I probably shouldn't even feel like this actually, that it's not as good quality as you guys do. So that's why I don't do it. But it's
send them
not
to
about
us.
the quality, right?
Send them to us. We'd love to air them.
Yeah.
We're grateful for you. We know that people are watching. We know they're grateful for what you do. So anything that you have, we'll take your old demo reels. We'll do whatever. We'll just air them. Just send them up, and we'll put them on. People love it. So
HSN bloopers,
HSN bloopers, yeah.
Right. I also love too that I'm allowed to bring people on the show.
Sure.
I can bring people, and if you watch some of them, like I have these forever memories now where my kids are on the TV show with me. My aunt Hilda came one time from Utah, and I was like, hey, you want to do this with me? And she's like, heck yeah. So it's sweet. It's just a sweet thing to be able to present to people who, and they're so nervous. They're like, I can't be on TV. I can't be on TV. Yes, you can. Just follow my lead. Just trust me and follow my lead. And people do. They come in and they're on TV. So a couple of the shows you could see I have different people on. And it's just, I'm like, who cares? Just have fun with it, right? Mm-hmm. Just have fun with it. So it's, again, no words, right? It's so hard to put into words the joy from it and just the passion behind it.
Well, it's all good. That's what I like about it. There's no words for it, but it's all positive. It's all, as you mentioned, joy. There's no negativity in this work. I think we've talked about the show long enough that Ben should tell us when we can watch it on the air.
Sure. I'm going to give these show times, and then I have a very important question to ask Cheri. So stay tuned here. I'm going to ask her about some of her other passions that she's working on as well. But to catch Brush Tips here on Brunswick Area Television, you can catch it on the live stream at these times as well at bat.vibit.com. There's Saturdays at 2 a.m., Sundays at 5 p.m., Mondays at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Once again, I always like to say, hey, maybe there's some guy, working out in a field in Canada somewhere, and he's listening to this because, this goes all over the world. Worldwide, this podcast. And he might need to pull off. He might need to be doing something, and get his pen out and write this down, put it in his phone. So once again, Brush Tips. You can catch him on the live stream, bat.vibit.com. You can catch him here on the channel, Saturdays at 2 a.m., Sundays at 5 p.m., Mondays at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. You can also watch them up to 3 months up at bat.vibit.com on demand. So that's where all those are found.
I want to know who's watching at 2:30 a.m. because that's when I'm up creating too. So.
Well, you would be surprised how many people say that they love the overnight hours because they work second or third shift, or they just got home and they're looking for something, or they work late nights. So, that's why we always do kind of the day parting of the shows. And your show airs for 2 weeks. So if you only catch the end of it once, you're like, oh, well, then I can catch it next week at this time. Or, it's really easy to go and watch them online because that's a nice service that we have set up. I know that WCTV has them up there as well. So people can always go and catch your shows online. But yeah, those overnight hours, some people are like, well, I don't want to be on overnight. I'm like, you'd probably be surprised how many viewers you're going to get in the overnight hours.
Right, right.
That's when people are like, I want something to watch that's good. So
I actually remember watching your station when I was younger. I remember being up and watching, things when I was in high school there. So
nice.
Anything good? What what show was it?
I think some of it was like board meetings and stuff. So.
There you go. Well, at least you weren't bored watching those board meetings. That's good.
Right, exactly.
So the passion I wanted to ask you about is that I know that in the corrections realm here, at least in Medina County, you were putting your show out there and you were working with some of the people who were incarcerated to kind of help them with an outlet. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that meant and how it was being done?
Yeah. There's a couple different ways. I know that they take the show and they put it on in South Dakota. There's a couple different correction facilities that air the show and give I don't know if they give the inmates a opportunity to paint or create or anything, but I have gotten emails from some of them just saying like, hey, we watched your show, we loved it.
Nice.
Yeah, and then there in Medina County, I actually got to go into the juvenile correction facility there, and I was presented with that through Access the Arts there in Medina County, and it is run by Jane Beck. She is a teacher in Highland School District, and she started this. She writes the grants and stuff for it. And she said, hey, you want to come and do this with the kids and come and create art and do art with them? And the stories from the kids that I have there, because I'm there in the facility one-on-one, it's different than just being on TV and, people watching from elsewhere. But these kids get to learn how to create with no expectation except for put paint on your brush and get it on the canvas. We've done things and don't scold me on this, but I went to Goodwill and got records one time. I tried to find the worst ones that weren't real popular. And then I took them in and we painted the covers. I tried to find ones with fun covers, and we kind of painted the covers and had them put their own ideas onto it. And they do an art show. And then you can go and you can actually bid on their art, and that helps fund for the paints and the canvases and stuff, because we volunteer our time to do that. And Abby, my business partner up there, she goes in now and helps. For a while I was online doing it because of the pandemic, and then I moved here, so I was doing it online. And the one time I was here and I was doing it was Thanksgiving, and I get a knock on my studio door, and I'm like, what the heck? And it's the police. And I went over and I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're like, well, we noticed somebody was in here. It's Thanksgiving, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling the kids, I'm like, hey, guys, there's like police at my door. Give me 1 minute. And they're all laughing. They're like, you're busted. You did something wrong. I'm like, no, I didn't. Like, I didn't do anything wrong. And they were just checking in because I was there at Thanksgiving. Who's there on Thanksgiving, right? And so I brought him in. I brought the police officer. I said, look, right here. Look, see? And so he's like, oh, hey, kids, what's up? And the kids were all laughing and stuff. But they have touched my heart so much. I was sent in there to help them, those kids help me so much. And I know Abby feels the same way when she gets to go in there. So
Sure.
giving them the opportunity to create when they might not feel seen, and when they're told their lives, like, you're a bad kid, you're a bad kid. They're not bad kids. They just made bad choices.
Sure.
And I get to be there. Abby gets to be there. Jane, Access the Arts. We all get the opportunity to go in there and just tell those kids, like, hey, you're loved.
That goes a
You
long
might have
way.
done some. It does. It goes a long way. We've had kids show up at the studio, and we tell them all the time, like, hey, you want to come in and create? Come in and create. You will never be charged.
Oh,
You want
nice.
to come in and get canvases? Come in and get canvases, paint, whatever. Some of those kids are so talented, but we give them the opportunity to just sit down and relax and paint in an environment where they might feel trapped, where they might feel not seen, where they feel like they're bad kids, right? There was one kid in particular, and he just sits in my heart all the time. And I went in, and every day he's upset. And I'm like, hey, man, like, what's up? You know, like, I know you're in a crappy situation, right? And he's like, I'm not supposed to be here. It was a misunderstanding. And, you know, and honestly, I don't ever ask them what they do. They're not allowed to share what they do,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. That's their thing, you know? And he just sat there, and he was so sad. And I saw him a few times. It was one of the visits. I was up from Florida, and just kept saying, like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm so disappointed. And I'm just like, hey, you're writing your story right now. This is part of your story. This is something that is going to help somebody. You've got to look at it that way, or you're going to make yourself go crazy.
Sure.
You've got to look at it like, this is going to help somebody someday. I said, so learn from it, relax, be in your art right now, and try to forget about why you're here and what's going on. The very last day I was there, I was walking out, and I just happened to turn around, and he was looking at me, and he put his hands together, and he just said, thank you. And he was like crying, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like that, to me, that's my reward. That's my payment. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why Abby does what she does, and Jane, and we just, through Access the Arts, and try to get in front of anyone who feels like they don't have the opportunity to create. That's my passion. That's where my heart is. And I tell people sometimes, like, you just have to do it with your heart. Who cares what it looks like? Just create with your heart.
Great words.
It makes a difference. Yeah. So if anyone has the opportunity, definitely look up Access the Arts. Look up Abby and what she does too. When you think of your job, right, and I'm going to quote that job word, as your passion, it's totally different. You want to show up. You want to be there. You want to spread your love and through the work that you do. And there's so many days that I say, you know what, God, send me who you need to send me, whether it's for me or for them or whatever. Like, just send me where you need me to be, or send the people in that you need me to show your love to and your art to. And I believe it or not, people come in all the time, and they're just like, I don't know why I walked in here. And then all of a sudden we're talking, and they're like, oh my gosh. Or people say, I don't know why I turned the show on. It was just on. And then, you know, now I can't stop watching it. So, like, a lot of stories that you guys get about your, you know, stuff, people do that to me too. And they say, I watched the show. It was so great. And it made me feel so good. I always watch it now. And to me, again, they're like mind blowing, right? It's just what I do, just like what you guys do, right? So
mind blowing's right. So I had never spoken to you before this, and I did not expect this podcast to take all these turns. So that's so motivational, and you're true to yourself, and I that's a lot of deep, you know, thoughts there, and some subject matters that you're making a difference in. That it was unexpected, but that's awesome to hear.
I have gone through situations where I've kind of lost that part of me sometimes because of life and just things that are going on with the pandemic, and like moving to Florida and not being around my family. All my family's in Ohio. I don't have family here. Oh, well, I do. I have older kids here, but they're across the state. And to feel lonely and to feel vulnerable in a new place, and then being able to create art has helped so much. And people joke around like, oh, you should be an art therapist, or you're an art therapist. And I'm like, I'm not. They're like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. But really, you're your own therapist when you get to sit down and you get to create and you get to put yourself into your work. It's totally different. And I think that that's kind of what changed my mindset about being an artist. Is I had a guy come in here. He's an older gentleman, maybe 75, and he used to design clothes. He was a famous fashion designer and in Detroit. And he was walking around my studio. He's looking at all my art on the walls, and he's like, "What is this? What is this? What is it?" I'm like, "That's my flower. That's a giraffe. That's a llama." And he's like, "Who painted these?" And I'm like, "Me." And he goes, "Where were you?" And I was like, "I don't know, probably here." He's like, "No, where were you?" Because you weren't in your painting. You weren't in your art. And I was like, "Oh, gosh, he's right."
He's calling you out.
Right.
He's calling you out.
Me out. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I created this peacock table. It was so beautiful. And I ended up selling it. And I texted my best friend and I said, when did I become an artist that sold a table for $600? Like, when did I become that artist? And she said, just now. Congratulations.
Yeah, there you go.
And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. Just now. Oh, my gosh. So just changing your mindset about your art. There's a guy here that people will tell him, hey, can you draw this picture of my daughter or whatever, this picture of my dog? It looks like a, elementary school kid did it, and people love it. People love it. They pay him to do that.
Nice. Well,
they
that's
love
his
it.
bent. Yeah.
Yeah. And people will comment like on our community page and stuff. And I'm like, good for you. And he just says, I don't care. I don't care what you say.
He's just
I don't care. Right. He's just doing it. And I'm like, that is the best ever. Like, good for you. Just create. Just create. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a line on a piece of paper. Just create. That's what I tell people. Yeah, who cares? Who cares what other people say? Just do it.
I think that's a great segue, because if you're sitting at home and you're as passionate as Cheri and you're like, hey, I want to bring something to people at home and I want to do a television show, this is your opportunity. Give us a call, 330-220-1726. You can stop over at the City of Brunswick's official website, www.brunswick.oh.us. Visit the Brunswick area television section of the website. You could do your own TV show. And I would like to also say right now, thank you to everyone out there who's listening that watches Cheri's show and has commented about it, because, this is what keeps her passion alive, to do it. And if you want to do a TV show, hey, just do it. Throw caution to the wind and do it, because we're here and we'll help you.
And if you're not in Brunswick and you're in Wadsworth, we'll give them the shout out too, because Cheri started off there.
Absolutely.
and then we stole her. So I figure that's we have to say nice things about WCTV now too. So, but they do great work as well.
Yeah, you guys all do. I mean, I'm grateful for you all, but and if anyone is ever worried about starting their own TV show, just have them call me. I'll just coach them through the first one. We'll all do great.
That's awesome.
I'll tell them they can do it. You're braver than you think.
There you go.
So be it for the show or for the studio, or just fan mail because of this podcast here, can fans reach out to you? Can artists reach out to you?
Oh yeah, of course. And I love sharing other people's art, and even if they were just beginners or they've been doing it forever. But yeah, they can always reach out to us at brushtips.studio. They can call one of the studios. I answer the Florida line. Abby answers the Ohio line, but she always gives them the phone number here, tells them how to get a hold of us. We have Facebook. We have Instagram, but I kind of suck at it because, again, I'm 45 and apparently that's like the teenage one. Young adults there on Instagram.
I think once we admit that's the teenage one, there's a new teenage one. I think that's how it works.
And I have a TikTok. Which is, I have over 5,000 followers, which I guess is good. I'm like, okay. And then through YouTube as well. So we have Brush Tips YouTube.
Awesome.
Well, we'd like to thank you for being on the show and talking to us. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know that you're trying to stay warm down there in Florida.
I know. It takes a lot of energy. We are cold here. Just so you know, the iguanas are falling.
Oh, no.
How much salt is on your shoe right now?
Yeah, exactly.
There's no snow on my shoe, but it is cold.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you. For Ben, I'm Tom. We've been speaking with Cheri about Brush Tips with Cheri. Tune in, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Bat Government programs are produced by Corinne Kirk, Tom Kepler, and Ben Staunton. You can find this and other programs, as well as a live stream on our on-demand website, bat.vibit.com. Feel free to reach out, offer a suggestion, or get involved. Thanks for tuning in.